2 of the Wednesday Night Wars in pro wrestling. AEW versus NXT. I wrote up a review of both shows and what I was experiencing as a fan so far a few days back, and got some pretty positive reaction to that from the wider universe. So I thought I'd put it in video form. Okay, so first up, NXT. NXT gives me the same positive feelings I experienced watching WCW at the start of the 90s. Memories of Sting, the Steiners, Wyndham, Flair, Zenk, Pillman, and Doom. And distinct moments like Ron Simmons shocking the biz when he became champ. Add in the 2019 top-tier presentation and production and athleticism, and it's really a very special show. Getting these same excited feelings some 30 years later, still glued and invested in the industry. I hope that this era does the same for many other fans, and I think it will. So notes from this week's NXT show. Roddy Strong versus Swerve Scott had an incredible back and forth and a breakout Star Maker match for Scott, even in defeat. I rewound several sections of this match to enjoy them again. It was really good. Afterwards, Adam Cole gave a great promo, as usual, and so did the charismatic, flamboyant Velveteen Dream. That one set up and confirmed a rematch for Roddy Strong's North American title. Great stuff. Ciampa came out and delivered a short and quite perfect promo regarding Cole's NXT Championship Goldie. Dad is home. Again, great stuff. There was also a nice interaction backstage with Garza and Ciampa after this, which has set up Ciampa's return match for next week. I am hype for that. Both were excellent, and Ciampa was the best heel in the biz, in my opinion, throughout 2018. Now, the women's division. Rhea Ripley and Dakota Kai come away from two very different but gripping matches looking strong. Ripley in dominant victory, and Kai even in defeat to another dominant performer, Bianca Belair. Belair, who also continues to climb within the division and pro wrestling at large. NXT have a solid women's division. Thoroughly enjoyed the show, as you can tell so far. There was a nice revisiting the history of Finn Balor vignette, the longest reigning NXT champ. It's a nice bit of history within NXT in its own right there. And also a good vignette with Pete Dunne to build up a match with Damian Priest after Priest attacked him last week. Cameron Grimes achieved a sneaky and noteworthy squash victory over the much bigger Boa. After a prompt distraction, real quick and early in the match, the bell had just rung, and that came from Killian Dane, who was just basically coming down to reap chaos on anyone he could get his hands on. Well, Grimes hit his double stomp for the win. His finishing move is going over just as strong as Grimes is right now. He exudes old school charisma and in-ring personality. It's good stuff. And your main event of the evening, Walter versus Kushida. It was enthralling in-ring storytelling with thrills and spills. A high-impact, hard-hitting and technical encounter from two guys with ability to rival anyone at the top of this industry. This was my overall favourite match of the week. NXT is a very reliable show for pure wrestling at worst, and at its best it is the very top tier of modern pure wrestling. Now on to AEW Dynamite. The opening match on Dynamite is Private Party versus the Young Bucks. The action made me care. I progressively wanted Private Party to win as the match built its way through several false crescendos, hinted at the big name Young Bucks winning, and then unexpectedly Private Party were victorious. This was a brilliant way to start the show. Young Bucks matches are always spot fests containing an abundance of moves that look like they should have finished the match up. You have to put on a different set of eyes to watch this type of match, much like a Johnny Gargano match, since all prove to have otherworldly resilience, of which their stature and unassuming appearances do not suggest. The art of making this all believable is their prowess for in-ring storytelling. Now that's something that all three of the aforementioned really are very, very good at. It all results in a compelling watch and the revolutionising of the industry. An unorthodox note for you. On a Nickelodeon show, Private Party would be the younger siblings or cousins of Street Profits, and it'd probably be a popular and hilarious show. Introducing the Inner Circle. Jericho has surrounded himself with an oddball group of differing personas, each with a different skill set and qualities. It's an unlikely group reminiscent of Deadpool's squad. And because it's Jericho at the helm, it actually works. Great promo from Chris Jericho, as always, even though a lot of its power came from taking shots at WWE. It's cheap, but it's fun. And the whole us against them does impassion people. Breaking the fourth wall on occasion is a nice nod to smart fans too. But it's a temperamental boiling pot. Darby Allin is a standout in AEW and potential star. And he stood out again. Jimmy Havoc, who he came up against, is essentially a train wreck and often looks sloppy. These two had an okay match, with the right outcome. I love his character-driven and unique finisher, the coffin drop. It looked cleaner and more spectacular against Seema last week on AEW Dark, but much like Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb, this will likely vary depending on opponent, occasion, angles. Allin, as Victor, now goes on to challenge for Chris Jericho's championship, Le Champion. That happens next week in a match and platform from which both will likely excel. Two hopeful outcomes for that one. One, a shock Allin win would create great intrigue. Two, Jericho retains, that's most likely. And with a strong showing from Darby Allin, Allin's star continues to rise. That'd be great. Women's tag match. It was alright, but the finish! Ref Aubrey Edwards shouted, "Ring the bell! Ring the bell!" as soon as Britt Baker applied the mandible claw to Sakura, and before Sakura actually tapped out or submitted or passed out. This is significant, particularly in the current climate of post-Hell in a Cell, and so we'll just presume this was a ref stoppage then. Sakura then started to tap out afterwards too, just to make sure. JR commented, "A real mandible claw from a real dentist. Another shot at WWE perhaps." Britt Baker continues to look good though. We had a couple of moments, both during a match and in a promo, featuring best friends trademark hugging. I only mention this because I felt that Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns parodied this at Hell in a Cell, which was quite amusing. Now, both and Jon Moxley, Spears and Mox, have great entrances for their match, and it all started off intensely. Maybe too much so, as unfortunately Spears threw a punch at thin air and Mox sold it like he'd been hit, falling into Tully Blanchard. That took me out of the moment, briefly. But I got back in when Blanchard sneakily charged Mox and sent him into the ring steps a couple of minutes later. This proved a very hard-hitting match with the right outcome, a Jon Moxley win. It done pretty well to portray Mox's hard-working and reckless style, I thought. So he came away looking strong, essentially. Now, immediately afterwards, Kenny Omega, the cleaner, appeared on the ramp with a broom and a baseball bat, both weapons wrapped in barbed wire. That was pretty cool. He challenged Mox to a fight and threw him the bat. But Pac, who'd done a decent job in furthering his own story on commentary, ran a chair through the back of Omega's head and knocked him flying. Pac left, and Mox stood over the downed Omega briefly. Then he left too. Dusty Rhodes and Hangman Page versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, the main event. Guevara is an easy heel. He just has a natural ability to make you want to see him get his butt kicked. But we know that's easier said than done, because this guy has a lot of ability and potential, actually. Jericho's entrance is pure star power. And Jake Hager joins him like a bodyguard. It feels very Hollywood Hogan. Jericho reminded me of that vibe earlier in the show too. These days, he's like a love child concocted during an orgy somewhere in Canada between Hollywood Hogan, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Jack Black. And it's a cocktail that the Ayatollah of rock and roller owns to perfection. Talking of early 90s feels, how about Dustin Rhodes in a main event? He still has all the ability to be there. Seeing Page fight Guevara, it really felt like a shame that this was not the match instead of Page versus Kip Sapien a couple of months ago. I'd been high on Page beforehand, but didn't like that match, and it felt like it went way too long. It hurt Page's build-up, and he's been on a downward trajectory for me since. The back and forth between these two comparative unknowns in this match were excellent. Halfway through, Jericho delivered a back elbow to Page, and then had a lion salt blocked by Page's knees. The back elbow looked very much like his Judas effect back elbow. His finisher, and possibly a little more ferocious than its regular delivery, but apparently not, since it did little but down Page briefly. Damn it, I wish that didn't happen. It was all a good, well-delivered sequence, but that back elbow trod all over his actual finisher. But never mind, it's a pretty cool match at this point. Discus Lariat from Page on Guevara was awesome, followed by classic Dustin Rhodes. All of it. Hager takes down Page on the outside, then Dustin on the inside, with ref distracted by Guevara. Judas effect back elbow from Jericho, the real one, and it's over. Lights out, lights back on. Cody Rhodes in the ring attacking Jericho. It's all chaos from here. A great back and forth medley between members of the Inner Circle and their opponents tonight, plus Cody and MJF. A nice fake here where it looked momentarily like he might join the Circle, old MJF. But no! And in fact, he would help out his best friend in the biz, Cody Rhodes. And the Young Bucks were involved in that medley as well, so we really had two sides divided. A kind of NWO versus WCW, or in this case, the Inner Circle versus AEW. As Jericho left toward the ramp, Darby Allin rolled down on a skateboard and took out Jericho. Never quite seen anything like that before. That was quite cool. Nice flying knee off the skateboard. The show ended with Chris Jericho, Le Champion, on the mic, threatening Cody and Allin, his upcoming opponents. Now, I've remarked a lot more on AEW than NXT here, because AEW is new, rough around the edges, and an unknown quantity. NXT is more established as a brand and as a polished product. NXT is reliably amazing and tends to put on the best pure wrestling matches from any American company, in my opinion. I thought that this second week of Dynamite was a lot better than the first week, which itself was a decent show. One big goal of AEW is to grow and establish themselves within the industry, and to attract new fans to do so. Personally, I've had an up and down relationship with AEW so far, but now, after week 2 of Dynamite, I'm much more of a fan than I've ever been. That was great. Both shows were, and there you have it. The Wednesday Night Wars, week 2. I'm Brother Ollie, and this has been The Golden Streak. Like or not, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Boom!